Good morning, America. Breaking overnight, Donald Trump Jr. speaks out.
I probably would have done things a little differently.
After releasing those stunning emails revealing he was eager to accept Russian help for his father's campaign, the president comes to his defense. What we're learning about the Russian lawyer and the music promoter whose emails are at the center of it all. President Trump's personal attorney joins us live.
Tornadoes tear across the Midwest. Massive funnel clouds and winds up to 80 miles an hour, damaging towns. As flash floods strand drivers. A new emergency issued this morning as the severe weather threat spreads across half the country.
Amazon announces overnight its Prime Day is now the biggest shopping day in Amazon history, even larger than Black Friday. You'll hear what topped the list of bestsellers.
Dramatic rescue. The incredible moment this group of strangers form a human chain, saving swimmers trapped in a rip current. Dozens of good Samaritans pulling them ashore. The heroes whose quick thinking saved lives.
Live in Times Square, this is GMA with Robin Roberts, George Stephanopoulos, and Michael Strahan.
And we do say good morning, America, on this hump day. What day is it? Well, how about that image?
Almost said hump day.
Hump day. How about that image? All those people quick thinking to save a family trapped by that rip current.
I mean, and what quick thinking it was, and you know what? They did. All of them got out safely. So incredible. It's such a powerful image of selflessness, working together, and they are all heroes. We're going to hear from them later in the show.
They thought fast and they acted fast, but we are going to begin with that breaking news out of Washington. President Trump is defending his son, Don Jr., this morning after the release of those explosive emails. There has been a lot of smoke about the Trump team's willingness to work with the Russians to defeat Hillary Clinton. These emails, the first flames. They are now the subject of intense interest from 4 separate investigations, including special counsel Robert Mueller. The revelations have rocked an already chaotic White House. ABC's chief White House correspondent Jonathan Karl is there. Good morning, John.
Good morning, John. Good morning, George. Donald Trump Jr. has firmly denied doing anything wrong, but he is now acknowledging that it may not have been a good idea to meet with that Russian lawyer.
In retrospect, I probably would have done things a little differently.
In his first interview since the story broke, Donald Trump Jr. says it was a snap decision in the heat of the campaign to accept that invitation from someone he was told worked for the Russian government and had dirt on Hillary Clinton.
Things are going a million miles an hour. You know what it's like to be on a campaign. We just won Indiana, but we're talking about a contested convention. Things are going a million miles an hour again. And hey, wait a minute. I've heard about all these things, but maybe this is something. I should hear them out.
In a startling development Tuesday, Don Jr. released the emails that show he was told the Russian government wanted to help his father's campaign and that he was willing, even eager, to accept the Russian help. The emails detail how a Trump acquaintance and publicist involved in the Miss Universe pageant in Moscow said the Russian lawyer had, quote, official documents and information that would incriminate Hillary and her dealings with Russia and would be very useful to your father, adding, this is obviously very high level and sensitive information, but it's part of Russia and its government's support for Mr. Trump. Don Jr. responds, if it's what you say, I love it. 6 days later, the meeting at Trump Tower was on. Don Jr., Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, now a top advisor at the White House, and then campaign manager Paul Manafort all sat down with the lawyer, Natalia Veselnitskaya.
It was literally just a wasted 20 minutes, which was a shame.
There's no evidence the lawyer actually provided any information on Clinton, and in fact, she denies she did. But the meeting appears to contradict denials from Trump advisors that the president himself or anybody on his campaign had any contacts whatsoever with Russian officials.
Are there any ties between Mr. Trump, you or your campaign, and Putin and his regime?
No, there are not. It's absurd, and there's no basis to it.
Did anyone involved in the Trump campaign have any contact with Russians?
Absolutely not, and I discussed that with the president-elect just last night.
I have nothing to do with Russia. To the best of my knowledge, no person that I deal with does.
On Capitol Hill, the emails have reignited talk of alleged Russian collusion.
These are his words, not mine, his. This was an attempt at collusion.
Hillary Clinton's former running mate raised the stakes even higher.
This is moving into perjury, false statements, and even into potentially treason.
We haven't even caught a glimpse of the president here at the White House since this story broke over the weekend. And George, today is the third straight day without a single public event on the president's schedule. Now, there is a tweet, though, just a few moments ago from the president about this. He says, "My son Donald did a good job last night. He was open, transparent, and innocent. This is the greatest witch hunt in political history. Sad." Robin?
Up early tweeting again. All right, John, thank you. And the meeting with a Kremlin-connected lawyer is just the latest contact we're learning about between top Trump associates and the Russians. We also know that former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, Attorney General Jeff Sessions, and Jared Kushner all had contact with the Russian ambassador. Kushner also meeting with the head of a state-owned Russian bank. Now we're learning more about a major player connecting Russia and the Trump campaign, and our chief investigative correspondent Brian Ross is here with a closer look. Good morning, Brian.
Well, good morning, Robin. At the center of all this intrigue is a goofball music promoter who says he once worked for Michael Jackson and somehow became the go-between for the Russians and Donald Trump's inner circle, a man by the name of Rob Goldstone.
On his Facebook page, Rob Goldstone's videos show him as a devil-may-care international traveler.
The heat is on. Inside on.
More a lovable clown than a scheming political operative. But Goldstone came into the Trump orbit, helping to promote and stage manage Trump's Miss Universe pageant in Moscow in 2013, working for the son of a Russian billionaire. All three of them, Goldstone, the son, and Trump, in this photo making plans for the pageant. When the son made a music video, he got Trump to make a trademark appearance.
You're fired.
It was Goldstone's emails last year that set up the fateful meeting at Trump Tower, with the Russian woman he described as a Russian government lawyer, bringing high-level and sensitive information that would incriminate Hillary Clinton. This morning in Moscow, the lawyer, Natalia Veselnitskaya, told ABC's Terry Moran she does not know why Trump was told to expect that she had any such information about Hillary Clinton.
Listen, I never had any compromising information against Hillary Clinton.
It was all a misunderstanding, she claims. The meeting took place one floor below the office of Donald Trump Sr., and Democrats in Congress now wonder how could it be that he says he only learned of the meeting in the last few days. Just days after Donald Jr. scheduled that meeting, his father told a crowd of supporters he would be revealing new information about the Clintons.
I am going to give a major speech on probably Monday of next week, and we're going to be discussing all of the things that have taken place with the Clintons. I think you're going to find it very informative and very, very interesting.
It doesn't stand to reason that the President of the United States didn't know about this meeting.
Especially since Trump knew well from his experience at the Miss Universe pageant in Moscow that Goldstone worked with his billionaire business partner, Aras Agalarov, who is known to be close to Vladimir Putin. In one of his emails to Donald Jr., Goldstone wrote, "I can also send this info to your father, but it is ultra-sensitive, so wanted to send to you first."
So far, there's been no comment from Goldstone, but he will be an important witness for investigators. Not only did he arrange the meeting, but friends say he was also one of the few who attended it and that he has a clear memory of just what happened, George.
Okay, Brian, thanks very much. Let's talk to this now with the president's lawyer, President Trump's lawyer, Jay Sekulow. Jay, thank you for joining us this morning. We saw the president's tweet this morning. He says his son is innocent, open, and transparent. So does President Trump believe it was appropriate for Don Jr. and Jared Kushner to meet with that Russian lawyer after receiving those emails?
Well, look, the president, I got to be clear on this, George. The president wasn't aware of the meeting, did not participate in the meeting, did not attend the meeting, and was only made aware of the emails. Actually reading the emails, seeing the emails was yesterday when they were released. But very, very recently is when the lawyers, our legal team, briefed the president on this. So that was very, very recent. So here's what you have, and you've been in this situation.
But I asked you if the president thinks it was right, if he thinks it was appropriate.
Well, it's not illegal. I mean, I haven't had the conversation with the president whether he thought it was appropriate or not. Here's what I will tell you. The meeting that took place is not illegal. These kind of meetings take place. Hillary Clinton's campaign, as you know, and the DNC received information from the Ukrainian government against who? Then the Republican nominee, Donald Trump. So the meeting itself and what took place at the meeting doesn't violate the law. The president was not aware of it. Donald Trump Jr. said in retrospect he would look at it differently today, but you got to put yourself in the position they were in, and you've been in the position. They're in the middle of a campaign for the presidency of the United States, and as you know, you have dozens of meetings every day. This was a 20-minute meeting, and evidently, the meeting was arranged for one purpose, and the lawyer, Natalia, said she didn't.
Let me stop you right there, Jay, because you mentioned
absolutely.
people being in meetings. In fact, other campaign operatives have been in meetings like this in the past, and they've done very, very different things. When Al Gore's campaign in 2000 got a stolen briefing book from George W. Bush, they called the FBI. I can't believe anyone I've worked with in campaigns, if they got an email saying the Crown Prosecutor of Russia has information, official documents and information that would incriminate Hillary and her dealings with Russia that would be very useful to your father, and that it's part of the Russian government support, the Russian government, an adversary of the United States. He gets that email and says, I love it. The president believes that's appropriate?
No, I didn't say that. The president was not aware of this, George, until very recently by his lawyers, and did not see the email when we all saw it yesterday. So to put this in the president's lap, I think is really inappropriate. Number one, as I said, the president wasn't aware of the meeting, didn't attend the meeting, and did not find out about the email exchange until very recently, and no one saw on my side. I had not seen the emails, for instance, as one of the lawyers, until yesterday when they were released.
That does raise another set of questions. So the New York Times is reporting this morning that the president signed off on the initial statement on Saturday, on the initial statement from Don Jr. on Saturday that didn't mention the emails, didn't really go into any great detail in the meeting, in fact was misleading about the meeting. So the president signed off on that statement. Does he feel he was misled by his son and by Jared Kushner if indeed they didn't tell him about these emails that they both received?
The president didn't sign off on anything. He was coming back from the G20. The statement that was released on Saturday was released by Donald Trump Jr., and I'm sure in consultation with his lawyers. The president wasn't involved in that.
Well, the New York Times says that he was involved in it, that several people on the plane were involved in it as well. So you're disputing
That's incorrect.
that account from the New York Times.
Yes.
You've also seen these questions about whether the president knew anything about this meeting at the time. I want to show again that statement from the president, which came out. He made the statement right before the meeting, after the emails had been received by Don Jr. Let's listen.
I am going to give a major speech on probably Monday of next week, and we're going to be discussing all of the things that have taken place with the Clintons. I think you're going to find it very informative and very, very interesting.
That's raised a lot of eyebrows. You are 100% confident that no one in the campaign, not Don Jr., not Jared Kushner, not Paul Manafort, no one in the campaign told the president anything about these emails, anything about this meeting before it happened, and he will testify to that under oath?
Well, I'm not talking. No one's testifying. I asked them to testify under oath on this, so I don't know how that's coming into the picture. The president was not at the meeting, was not aware of the meeting, did not participate in the meeting, and as I said, was made aware of the email exchange. And when it was released yesterday, he was briefed on it earlier by his legal team, but very recently. So the president, I'm not worried about the president testifying on anything here, because the fact is the president wasn't involved. So, there's another aspect of this, George, and that is, if you look at the situation as presented in the emails, there is no illegality. I mean, most of the lawyers that have come on the networks have acknowledged that this isn't illegal. There's no illegality involved here. So to put this statement about the president coming under oath, on what? I mean, that would be the question here. So,
well, we know it's being investigated by the special counsel, and I was asking whether you thought and whether the president thought it was appropriate, not whether it was legal or illegal.
You keep saying that everybody knows the president's being investigated by the special counsel. Well, that's not true. There's no investigation of. I mean, we had this conversation a couple of weeks ago. The president is not under investigation by the special counsel. So I mean, it keeps coming up as a foregone conclusion, except it's incorrect.
I'm not sure you're right about that, but we're going to have to leave it for another day.
I would know a little bit about it. I'm one of the lawyers.
We will find out. Jay Sekulow, thanks very much. Robin?
Hey, George,
all right, George. For more now, we're going to bring in our senior justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas. And speaking about the special counsel, Robert Mueller, you're finding out that he is putting together quite a team, and a large one at that.
Robin, good morning. That's right. Mueller already has a staff of 16 attorneys with more in the pipeline. These are skilled prosecutors, experts in unraveling conspiracies, financial crimes, and taking down the mafia. And Robin, there are already dozens of FBI agents launched digging into the Russia probe. I think it's fair to say no one in President Trump's orbit has ever seen the kind of scrutiny they're now facing.
Pierre, how do you think this latest revelation concerning Don Jr. is going to impact Mueller's investigation?
Now, sources familiar with how counterintelligence investigations are conducted tell me the first thing Mueller will likely go after, possibly as early as this week, are any records or emails related to that meeting. Down the line, these sources expect there will be requests for interviews, but investigators will first want the written and digital records. Also, sources tell me to expect that Mueller will take a close look at whether Trump has business ties in Russia. Why? Because the people who reached out about this alleged negative information about Hillary Clinton include people the president had a financial relationship with in regard to the Miss Universe pageant held in Russia, Robin.
Far from over. All right, Pierre, thanks very much. And now Amy has the morning's other top stories, starting with an iceberg breaking away from Antarctica.
That's right. In fact, one of the largest icebergs ever recorded has just broken away from an ice shelf in western Antarctica. It is the size of Delaware and believed to contain 1 trillion tons of ice. Scientists were expecting this because a large crack formed years ago. They're divided over whether this has anything to do with climate change. Well, the U.S. military has released video showing the first successful test of the so-called THAAD missile defense system against an intermediate-range missile. It managed to intercept a missile fired near Hawaii. That missile destroyed is similar to those being developed by North Korea. Well, an unusual move on Capitol Hill as the Senate struggles to pass health care reform. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has announced he is cutting summer vacation in half, forcing senators to work through the first 2 weeks of August. A revised health care bill is expected to be unveiled tomorrow. And the American League has won its 5th consecutive All-Star game. They needed extra innings last night until MVP Robinson Cano's home run in the 10th. The final score was 2-1, but the game no longer determines home field advantage in the World Series. And finally, it is hard enough getting onto a train packed with commuters each morning, but imagine this. A guy in Australia, well, he got quite the chilly reception when he wheeled a full-size refrigerator onto the platform at this station and then squeezed onto the train with it. Well, it didn't stand for very long. He was promptly kicked off by security and fined $250. That is cold. Got it?
That's also the cost of the refrigerator.
Yeah, exactly.
But you know what? Maybe he did what I'm about to talk about next. Maybe he did the Amazon Prime shopping day and got it and didn't get the delivery. But it was breaking news about the massive shopping day, Amazon Prime Day, breaking the company's records. It was bigger than Black Friday and Cyber Monday. It was the biggest day ever in Amazon's history, and Rebecca Jarvis is here to tell us more about it.
It was an incredible day for Amazon. For the world of shoppers, the most popular Amazon device sold that day, the Echo Dot. Some of the other big sellers, this Finish all-in-one Max Espresso machine, Fisher-Price Soothe and Glow Seahorse, and Fall of the Giants book trilogy, and finally, a repeat bestseller from last year's Prime Day, this programmable pressure cooker.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
that was a repeat from last year. The most important takeaway here, though, is Amazon's dominance. 5 years ago, we didn't even have a Prime Day. Now it is the biggest sales day of the year, likely $1 billion in sales in just one day, Mike.
I want that pressure cooker. I didn't get it.
Did you look at the stats on this thing?
Gosh, I want that.
So it's a 7-in-1 pressure cooker. It can make yogurt. It can warm your food. Yeah, it does it all. Here, I've got a slow cooker, rice cooker, steamer, saute.
I want it.
What a deal.
I'll be honest with you. I'm listening to all the things they can do, and I'm like, well, I can't even put the food in it.
All right, you two, thanks. Rob has a look at those tornadoes and flooding out in the Midwest. Rob?
Hey, good morning, Rob. We had 6 reported tornadoes. This is one of them in Conroy, Iowa, beautifully front-lit tornado, and also another one in North Dakota, a multi-vortice tornado there, and severe weather today from Omaha all the way to Lake Erie. Time now for UV Index, brought to you by Sprint.
Hi, I'm Paul. People ask why I switched to Sprint. Well, their network reliability is within 1% of the big guys, and they have the best price for unlimited among national carriers. And wait, are you watching this on the awesome iPhone 7? You gotta get iPhone 7 from Sprint, and they'll give you a second one on them. What are you doing? Go switch to Sprint.
Who's he talking to?
I don't know, but I'd better go to Sprint.
Wait.
2 iPhone 7s! Love you!
Get Sprint Unlimited. And now, get iPhone 7 and get a second iPhone 7 on us.
And a very good morning, meteorologist Brian Vandergraff. If you're walking into work early this morning, isolated sprinkle off to the west. We're watching a little complex of some showers from overnight from the Midwest drop through here. Most of those will fizzle, and then muggy by mid-morning, already 89 by 11 o'clock. So that early sprinkle chance, minor chance, but most of us stay dry. And then a couple of thunderstorms this afternoon, much like yesterday. They weren't very widespread, but a couple of them were gusty. Through the afternoon, mid-90s, but the story is the heat index, the way it feels. Look at that. It could feel like 100 to 104 at times this afternoon.
And coming up here on GMA, a closer look at the man behind the headlines, Donald Trump Jr. and his relationship with his father.